It's the Just Okay Sports Podcast.
Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back, and it has been way too long. This is the Just Oklahoma, otherwise known as the Just OK Sports Podcast. I'm your village idiot, Daryl, and I'm here flying solo tonight as we are on the verge of college football season, but even more so tonight, we are going to focus on the retirement of Russell Westbrook. And so we'll be giving kind of our thoughts and breaking all that down. And we will have a couple other pods throughout this week. We're going to be kind of recording some, condensed, if you will. So we might record 2 or 3 in an evening, and then we'll let those out through the week. So just know if some kind of breaking news happens in between when these are released or when you're listening to them and those kinds of things, and it's not being mentioned, that means it's probably been recorded before that. But hoping to kind of keep things going and rolling, and we're working on having some great guests on to break down everybody. We got Michigan insiders coming on with us again to talk Michigan game very soon and all the different things. And so again, we hope you'll join us. And I know if you're watching this on YouTube, the video quality is horrendous, and I get that, and I apologize. We are working on upgrading things here at the house. We have gotten the internet upgraded, so that's good. We won't have to worry about internet drops or any of those kinds of things like we've had in the past. But we hope to get some video quality up and going a little bit better for you very, very soon. But let's get into it, shall we? And let's talk about Russell Westbrook. First of all, I believe this came as a really big surprise to just about everybody. It even felt like Shams was caught a little off guard as Russ seemed to release a video that all of us were kind of like, I think that's retirement. I'm not sure. And it took him a little while before he even went public saying, yes, Russell is retiring. And so, man, I don't know. I know a lot is made of Nick Collison as Mr. Thunder. I fully agree that, especially if Shea continues what he's doing for 2, 3, 4 more years at a minimum, then he's the greatest player in Thunder history, brought a championship here, all those things. But I don't know if it gets more Mr. Thunder than Russell Westbrook. I just don't. And oddly enough, long before we ever even considered doing this pod, doing anything like that, I'll never forget. I think we had gone to a movie, and the movie got out, later in the evening, but we hadn't eaten, and we went. It was again my wife, Troy, and his wife on kind of a double date. We were actually with some friends as well as a triple date. And we went to Red Robin. It was late. They were, closing up in 30, 40 minutes, something like that. And we were in there eating our meal, and our waiter had come over and said, "Hey, do you see that guy standing over there?" And we were like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Hey, that's the Thunder's first round pick, Russell Westbrook." We were like, "Oh, no way." And we never went and asked for his autograph or anything like that. I think it was Troy actually that eventually just kind of went, "Hey, Thunder up." Because there was really nobody in the restaurant but us. I think maybe like 2 other tables. And he turned around with that big, huge, joyful smile that he had, and he waved at us and said hello. And had a friend that was working there that he had known from back in California, and he was just visiting. But again, pleasant, great, all those things. And so that was our first interaction, with Russell Westbrook, was that moment. And just crazy to see that part, and then to see what he became. I feel like when Sam Presti drafted Russ, it was kind of this, man, that's a big reach, and we don't really know. And then for him to go and break one of the most unbreakable records that there was is just phenomenal. And again, coming back to the Mr. Thunder, I just don't know that there will be a player that will ever be as beloved as Russ, with all of his flaws and with all the things that were awkward and weird at times and all the different things. But he chose Oklahoma City. He did not choose to run. He stayed. And just his whole attitude. Matter of fact, I listened to Down to Dunks podcast, great Thunder podcast you should check out, by the way. Andrew Schlecht, friend of the show, and Um, man, just hearing his speech when he re-signed and re-upped and did the extension, and just that, when KD left, man, where were you? And he was just like, I, talked to Sam and said, what are we going to do to win? And that's all that he was, and that was all that his focus was, and that's all that he was going towards. And again, I think most of us thought KD was the guy that presented himself as wanting to be in this small market, wanting to lead the franchise, wanting to compete. Remember, he was the one that had the quote of everybody's going to winners. Whatever happened to competing? Remember that quote that he put out on Twitter, and then 2 years later, he's joining a 73 win team, and Russ stayed, and him staying allowed us to bring in other players. Oladipo is one of those, and some other trades and things that we did. But again, several podcasts and writers and everybody else have mentioned this. Everybody talks about PG and how the PG trade has created the team that we have right now. But PG's not here if it's not for Russ. That trade never happens if it's not for Russ. Because if Russ jumps ship and leaves for nothing, then the franchise is literally cratered over a 2-year period, and you got nothing. But because Russ stays, you sign PG, you sign Carmelo, right? You do all these things, not sign, but trade for Carmelo. You do all these things to where that trade is ultimately what has led this franchise to have 18,000 first-round picks in the next 6 years, that led to the pick of Chet, that led to the pick of J-Dub, that led to being able to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So Russ saved the franchise when everybody thought no one will ever want to play there, that he chose to stay. And then by him choosing to stay is what has allowed this franchise to rebuild so quickly and get where it was. Again, I think the title, Mr. Thunder, I think will probably always in the building stay with Nick Collison, but I'm sorry. For me, Mr. Thunder is Russell Westbrook, and it forever will be Russell Westbrook. And I will always remember too. So not only did we get to see Westbrook on, not long after being drafted, but I also got invited by a friend of mine I went to church with. He had tickets to the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame ceremony, to which Russell was being inducted into, and I got to go. And I don't know how many of y'all remember this, but it was Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, that came and did his induction speech. It was not long after that, or just before that, I should say, that Russ had signed with Jordan brand and got a shoe with them and all the things. And I'll never forget, I won't get the quote right, and I didn't have time to go back and look it all up, but Jordan making light over and over, I knew when KD left that Russ wasn't going anywhere. That's not who he is. And it's one of the reasons that we signed him to the Jordan fan, that he wants to relentlessly compete and win. And it was kind of crazy to hear not only Michael Jordan giving praise to Russ, but throwing shade at KD when we all were at our peak of KD hate. It was unreal, man, and just incredible. And then from there, man, you go into that season, that unforgettable season where he is the MVP and averages a triple double and had however many triple doubles in a row, and somebody had just posted the other day all the clips of Magic Johnson and Barkley and LeBron and all these playing. That's never going to happen again. It will never happen again. And for it not only to happen, but through a point guard, an undersized point. It makes sense that a guy like LeBron, with his size and his height, to be able to do what Oscar Robertson did, because the rebounding comes easier for him, right? The scoring is easy for him. And then he's a great passer, so the assist. But for a point guard to average double-digit rebounds is insane. And then to do that night after night after night after night. So with all that, I think obviously the other thing that we now are going to segue into are kind of my favorite moments of Russell Westbrook, the ones that I remember. the most, kind of his highlight plays, highlight moments, highlight games, if you will. And I think this is not necessarily in order, but the first one that came to mind, I think, is the same one that comes to mind for everyone. That first playoff appearance for the Thunder, they're playing the Lakers, and Russ is breaking away, gets fouled, and does the like over the head flip in shot. Man, I was in the building for game 3 of that series. It's the first playoff game in Oklahoma City ever, sitting in Loud City with my wife. Maybe the loudest environment I've ever been in my life. I mean, just, it was insane. Now, I didn't get to go to any of the finals games. Didn't get to go any of the semifinal games on our championship run. I've heard it was very loud in there. But, man, I don't know. That first playoff game, if you were in that arena for that game against the Lakers, it was insane in that place. It was deafening. And you could tell just something special was going. So that's number one. Number two, that I have not heard a lot of people talk about, still one of the plays that comes to my mind right out the gate for Russ, no doubt. It was a game in 2017, I believe, against the Toronto Raptors, and Russ is on the right side of the floor coming up, and all of a sudden he just reaches back and throws this bounce pass about 45 or 50 feet cross court, bounce pass that goes nutmeg through the defender's legs into Oladipo's hands for a layup. That pass was insane. Just insane. I mean, I will forever remember that play as one of the ones that I just remember from Russ. Third play that I remember from Russ is obviously the very nifty going up and the kind of off to Steven Adams on the side where you didn't even realize he had let the ball go, and yet he did. And then Steven Adams just flushes it down. Yet again, another play that is just for the ages, that everybody remembers and thinks of when they think of Russ, and all those things. And so that's one of my favorite memories as well. Number 4 for me is the game that sealed the Oscar Robertson record against the Denver Nuggets, down at the end of the game, and Russ launches a 3, not only to send us to the playoffs, but to end Denver's season. That just encapsulated Russ, and it was the chef's kiss to just an unbelievable season, which leads me to my 5th, and I'm going to say this is number 1 overall. Okay, so I'm naming it 5th. I don't know what order these others rank per se. They're all just kind of there together. But this is number 1 for me. That MVP run. That MVP run. Triple-double after triple-double after triple-double. Russ doing it triple-double after triple-double after triple-double with no Kevin Durant because he took off and went and joined the Golden State Warriors. And he is willing his team to a winning record because that roster was not loaded at all. And the West was deep and it was tough. And guess what? I remember at least 3 times that season. And I believe the first time was in Brooklyn, was the first one. Thunder are playing in Brooklyn. And Russ has his triple-double. He's going nuts in Brooklyn. And all of a sudden you start to hear a chant. And then the announcers kind of noticed it and went, okay, this is weird. Started listening a little closer. And sure enough, the whole arena starts to go. And it's the whole arena chanting MVP, MVP in Brooklyn. When the Thunder weren't supposed to be any good. So there wasn't Thunder Blue all through the arena like we've seen the last couple of years. It was Brooklyn fans. And then I believe it happened again in Boston, and I don't remember where the third was, but there were 3 times that season where Russ just had these unreal triple-double games. And because of what Kevin Durant did, and because of everybody in the NBA knowing that Russ was carrying that team and leading them like no one had ever seen before, that the other fan bases started chanting MVP for Russ. And despite the fact that they didn't have this great record, they weren't running away with everything. But there was no question he was going to win MVP that year. You could not give it. It didn't matter how many points a game Harden scored. It did not matter how good Kawhi's defense was. No one was getting that MVP but him. And the other fans of other teams saw it and they recognized it and they celebrated it and they celebrated his competitiveness. They celebrated how hard he played and they began to chant MVP for the guy that chose to stay in a small market, the guy that chose to stay and compete and not go get a ring in his prime with a team that was set and ready to already win multiple championships. It was incredible. My favorite memory by all of Russ, because Russ was so polarizing and still is. There's still people trashing him now in his retirement. And even so, that season, the entire NBA world was chanting the same thing. That dude's the MVP. Didn't matter what stadium he went into, didn't matter what fan base, no matter how rabid they were, they recognized that greatness. And I think more than anything, that was the season that everybody really recognized how hard Russell Westbrook plays the game of basketball. Now, there is nobody more bipolar than Russ. When it came to being on the court and with media, Russ just had a switch of he hated everyone. As he said, the only friend he had on game night was the ball. No one else was his friend. And that included media. And he treated the media poorly at times. He did not handle himself with good character, I believe, at times with the media. But I know this, when Russ got in his car and he left the stadium and he was in Oklahoma City, there could not have been a nicer guy. I knew people who lived in the neighborhood he lived in for a time and talking about Russ coming out and inviting the kids in the neighborhood to come play games at his house, or Russ actually answering the door at trick or treat night and handing out candy and not hiding in the back or not putting a bowl out front and saying, please only take 2 pieces, right? Or any of those, but he would come out and interject with them. I heard a testimony, I believe it was on, again, the Down to Dunk pod, about somebody that was an extra in a commercial that Russ shot. And like 10 years later, Russ remembered them by name and kept up with them and checked in on them and talked with everybody on the cast. If you ran into Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City, away from the court, there was no one kinder. There was no one more joyful and more grateful and more humble about the circumstances that they were in. And I wish the rest of the world got to see that part of Russ more, because it's another reason why Oklahoma City fans love him so much. Is, yes, we saw the craziness of the court, the scowl and all the things, but we also saw and we heard story after story after story of who he was off the court. And they could not be more different people. And look, I know that Russ is listening to the pod. I'm joking. I know that he's not. But, I mean, I just don't think Oklahoma City can say thank you enough. He impacted the city emotionally for all of us that are sports fans. Literally, his choice helped our whole city and state economically in a way that will never be able to be put into words. And he continues to pour in to this community and to help to rebuild it and make it more than what it's ever been. And so, yeah. And then the last thing I would just say thank you for beyond all that is just, I think that one thing that definitely is ingrained in the Oklahoma spirit is we can live with losing as long as you play hard, as long as it's giving it your all. There have been plenty of games that Oklahoma football or Oklahoma State fans have lost, like whatever, and you just go, they played great. It's just a great game. You just got beat, and it still stings, but you can live with that. And Russ played hard every night. And I believe no one, I have not heard anyone say this, but it's true. No one has ever, and no one will ever play harder night in and night out than Russell Westbrook. And what a legacy to leave. To say he never took nights off. He never quit. He never said it's a back-to-back night and I'm just going to kind of give it 50% and see what happens. No, he came on that court and he laid everything on the line. And with some of the injuries that he dealt with, If you remember, he had a surgery that was botched on one of his knees. For him to have an 18-year career where his game was predicated on effort and athleticism just tells you how hard he played the game. And so for basketball fans, I would just tell Russell Westbrook, thank you. Thank you for playing so hard, for bucking the trend of taking nights off and just not giving it your all every single night. And the cliche culture that is the NBA now. Well, it's just a regular season game and it doesn't matter. You would not know that watching Russell Westbrook. You would have thought every single night was Game 7. And that was the greatest thing to watch with him. You hated seeing him miss all the shots. You hated seeing him play out of control sometimes. You hated seeing let his emotions get the best of him and alter his game. But you never, ever questioned that when the night was over, the tank, the clip, whatever you want to say, was empty. And for that, that's the true mark of a champion. And I know he doesn't have a ring, and I get all that, but that's the mark of greatness, is playing relentlessly with everything you have every single night. So Russ, man, thank you. I believe he deserves a statue. Please, in the comments or hit us up on Twitter, what should the statue be? Because I think it's coming. Is it just the scowl or what? I have been on record as saying I believe the statue should be the game between KD and Russ, where we were getting blown out by Golden State, but Russ makes an incredible play. They call a timeout, and he just turned and looked at KD and said, I'm coming. If there is any way to get that into a statue of him saying, I'm coming into a statue, I would love it. So that would be my choice. But how about yours? What is your choice for the statue for Russell Westbrook? And hey, hit us up. What was your favorite memory of Russ? What was your favorite play, favorite moment, favorite game, whatever? If you have a moment where you interacted with Russ off the court that is worth sharing, man, please, again, put it in the comments, send it to us, hit us up on Twitter, and let us know. We would love to hear from you. Okay. The next episode is going to be talking about Oklahoma Sooner football and talking fall camp. So I hope you'll come back and join us for that one. And so please make sure that you are liking, subscribing, and following and doing all the things so you can keep up with us and get all the info that we got. All right. We appreciate you guys. We're having a great time. We hope you are too. And we will talk to you guys later. Bye, Baker.
Cha-ching, it's on your money ball.
And you can unhitch the wagon. Put the ponies in the ball.